ब्रेक के बाद आप सभी का स्वागत है हमारे खास सेगमेंट इकोनॉमी टुडे में। तो आइए शुरुआत करते हैं इकोनॉमी टुडे की। कालेधन के खिलाफ जंग में हम लगातार अपने शो पर विभिन्न मुद्दों पर चर्चा करते रहे हैं और आज इसी कड़ी में हम जानेंगे कि केंद्र सरकार द्वारा कालेधन पर लगाम लगाने के लिए आयकर कानून में बड़ा संशोधन करने का जो प्रस्ताव संसद में मंगलवार को पेश किया गया उसे ध्वनिमत से पास कर दिया गया है। क्या है इस बिल के मायने, कैसे धरपकड़ होगी तेज काला धन रखने वालों की और गरीबों के कल्याण के लिए कैसे इस कर का इस्तेमाल किया जाएगा, और ऐसे बहुत सारे सवालों के जवाब जानने की हम कोशिश करेंगे इस शो पर। अगर आप इस कार्यक्रम का हिस्सा बनना चाहते हैं, बहुत आसान तरीके हैं। ट्विटर के जरिए अगर आप सवाल करना चाहते हैं तो #economytoday का इस्तेमाल कीजिए। मेल के जरिए अगर आप हमसे संवाद साझा करना चाहते हैं तो economytoday.ddnews@gmail.com का इस्तेमाल कीजिए। आपके सवालों के जवाब देने के लिए आज हमारे साथ स्टूडियो में मौजूद हैं जाने माने टैक्स एक्सपर्ट वेद जैन जी। आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है हमारे साथ सुबह सवेरे जुड़ने के लिए। तो शुरुआत करते हैं हमारे खास शो इकोनॉमी टुडे की।
Well, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has put out facts in the public domain regarding this government's amendments in the Income Tax Act that was passed in the Lok Sabha on Tuesday. According to the experts, these amendments are strong, and those trying to take advantage of the demonetization process to change their black money to white will be facing the taxmen soon who've been armed the stricter provisions to make tax evaders pay a heavy price.
The Lok Sabha had passed an amendment bill to the Income Tax Act on Tuesday to enable the government to impose penalties on unaccounted for cash being deposited in bank accounts post-demonetization in large sums. Putting out facts, the Finance Minister said the existing provision of penalty of 200% for misreporting income under Section 270A has not been changed. Elaborating further, he informed that existing provision of only 30% tax on unexplained cash shown in return has now been doubled to 60%. 25% tax as surcharge and 3% cess has also been added. Total tax comes to 77% if it is shown in return. 85% of income tax payable as tax plus penalty if income is concealed. Penalty on search and seizure has also gone up from 10 and 20% to 30% if income is admitted and shown in return. Penalty is 60% in search and seizure if income is not admitted. 25% of disclosed income is interest-free deposited for 4 years under Prime Minister Garib Kalyan Yojana. 50% of income goes as tax plus penalty plus surcharge under PMGKY, that is the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana. Clearly, those who have tried to launder their black money to white during the demonetization process will be faced with strict provisions. Once passed in the upper house, presidential assent could see renewed crackdown against tax evaders. DD News.
So, well, those are the points where, in fact, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has come out. He tweeted apparently giving some sort of facts, some clarity on what exactly are these amendments. It's clear that these amendments have been made to corner and fix the tax evaders up. Well, we have with us the taxation expert, Mr. Ved Jain, with us. Mr. Jain, well, if we have a look at these amendments, these income tax amendments, let's go point-wise. What are the clarities which, in fact, Arun Jaitley has given, and then he has explained as well on the public domain. But then before going by point, on the whole, now this is pretty much clear that it is going to affect the black money holders, the tax evaders. But what is that, what the normal person, the honest taxpayer should basically understand from this?
You see, the Prime Minister announced demonetization on 8th November. And post demonetization, various issues have come up to cope with the black money. And one of the issue was that the people who are holding this black money, can they get scot-free by paying just 30% tax?
True.
Because the existing provision of the income tax do allow that if you declare an income of the current year and include that income in your income tax return, nothing can be done except charging tax. And tax rate was 30%. Now, a debate was going on all across India among the tax experts and tax consultants that whether this can be done or not can be done. And with reference to there was also an issue about the penalty under Section 270A, which was being debated hot across. And everyone was unanimous in the view that in case a person goes straight to the bank, deposit the money, include in the income tax return for the next year, he will be visited with 30% tax and no penalty can be levied under Section 270A. The government got alarmed on this issue, and that's why they brought this amendment bill, taxation amendment bill. And then they introduced this provision that in case you do in this manner, then you will be charged tax at the rate of 60%, not 30%. That's a major change which they made. This is a change in the tax rate. If you have any income from 1st April 2016 onward, which represents your basically any deposits or investment in bank, etc., and even if you include in the return of income, you need to pay not 30% but 60% tax. In addition thereto, you need to pay 25% surcharge thereon, which takes to 16 plus 60 plus 15, 75, and then 3% education cess. So nobody should get any information that this is basically to cover up the, well, I say lacuna to attack the black money, which was the main objective for demonetization. That's an issue. Now, having done so, now the issue of levy of penalty is taken care by the rate of tax. So because that issue of 270A penalty is leviable or not leviable, that gets sorted out. Now, in order to address another issue, that in case a person does so, and he does not include in the income tax return and does not pay the tax, then he can be visited with another penalty at the rate of 10%. So that's why the tax rate goes up to 85%. That's we have been talking about of it. Now, this is the issue which has been addressed. At the same time, the government came out with another scheme which we call a declaration scheme, a Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Kosh or Garib Kalyan Severi. There they said, all right, now in case you are having black money and you deposit in a bank account, that 50% you need to pay towards tax. That straight away goes to tax. And 25% thereof goes to another deposit, which is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Kosh. And 25% you can withdraw. And for this purpose, the Act prescribes a complete modus operandi. You need to deposit the money in the bank account. You fill in the form, submit the form to the commissioner, along with the challan of tax payment, along with the challan for deposit of the money in the Garib Kalyan. So that's a procedure which has been clearly defined. And this is to strengthen the existing tax laws and to make that, yes, nobody gets out of this demonetization and makes a way here or there where he gets out by paying a lower tax or by doing something which is not expected by the government.
तो कोशिश सरकार की वेज यही है कि जितने भी लूपहोल्स अगर समझ में आते हैं, क्योंकि कहते हैं कि कानून बनने से पहले उसको तोड़ने वाले पहले उसका कोई ना कोई तोड़ निकाल लेते हैं, तो सरकार पूरी कोशिश कर रही है अपनी तरफ से. लेकिन इसमें जो ये गरीब कल्याण योजना के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं, साफ तौर पर ये भी सरकार ने अपनी मंशा साफ की है कि इससे जो आय जनरेट की जाएगी उसका उपयोग सिंचाई, आवास, शौचालय, बुनियादी ढांचा में इसे लगाया जाएगा. क्या लगता है कि इस कदम से जहां हम टैक्स कलेक्शन की बात करें उसमें कितनी बढ़ोतरी दर्ज होगी? और जहां तक गरीबों का सवाल है तो उनके लिए तो एक अच्छी खबर है ही कि उनकी जो मूलभूत सुविधाएं हैं उसे और मजबूत बनाने के लिए सरकार ने ये कदम उठाया है.
देखिए, जब ये सरकार की जो कोशिश है कि जिन लोगों ने टैक्स नहीं दिया वो पैसा है, वो टैक्स है जो सरकार को नहीं मिला और गरीबों को उसका बेनिफिट नहीं मिल पाया. तो सरकार ने जब ये स्कीम अनाउंस की तो उस बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए कहा, देखिए आपने मुझे 30% टैक्स नहीं दिया, वो तो टैक्स मुझे दीजिए, वो मैं बजट में कंसोलिडेटेड फंड से जैसे यूज हो सकता वो करेंगे. आपने उसकी चोरी करी तो मैं आपको 10% की पेनल्टी लगा रहा हूं, तो आप 10% वो पेनल्टी दीजिए. लेकिन क्योंकि पैसा आपको पहले देना था और आपने नहीं दिया और इससे गरीबों का कल्याण में कहीं ना कहीं समस्याएं आई हैं और उनको कम पैसे मिले हैं, तो आप 33% सरचार्ज दीजिए. जो 30 का 33 बनता है 10%, वो गरीब कल्याण कोष में जाएगा और सरकार उन गरीबों के लिए यूज करेगी अगर वो पैसा आपने पहले दिया होता और सरकार उसको यूज कर पाती. तो सरकार ने उसके लिए एक सेपरेट कोष बनाया ताकि वो कंसोलिडेटेड फंड में नहीं, जो पैसा उन गरीबों के लिए सिंचाई के लिए, टॉयलेट के लिए, उसके लिए ही यूज होगा. तो वो सरकार ने एक स्कीम बनाई है. तो सरकार का उद्देश्य दो हो गए. एक, उन लोगों से टैक्स की वसूली करना, पैसे की वसूली करना जिन्होंने नहीं दिया. दूसरा, उस पैसे का वो उपयोग करना जहां वो पहले होता जो अब नहीं हो पाया, तो वहां पर उपयोग करना. तो सरकार की जो मंशा है, सरकार का ऑब्जेक्टिव है, तो वो तो बहुत क्लियरली डिफाइंड है. उसमें कहीं कोई वो नहीं लगता. कभी कभी ऐसे लगता है कि ऐसी स्कीम आने से सरकार किसी ब्लैक मनी वाले को छूट दे रही है. ऐसा सोचना मेरे हिसाब से ठीक नहीं होगा, क्योंकि एक देश है, देश में एक समाज है. तो समाज के जो लोग कर रहे हैं, जो लोग कर रहे हैं, उनको उनकी साइकोलॉजी को समझते, उनके मैन्यूवरिंग को समझते हुए सरकार को कानून में समय समय पर चेंज करनी पड़ती है. तो वही बातों को देखते हुए वित्त मंत्री जी ने भी लोकसभा में कहा कि कुछ लोग ऐसी कार्य में लग गए हैं जिससे कि लगता है कि वो देश का नुकसान करेंगे और हमारे टैक्स में भी गड़बड़ करेंगे। तो उसी को एड्रेस करने के लिए सरकार ने ये इस कानून को लाया गया।
और क्या लगता है कि क्योंकि हम शो के जरिए भी ये चर्चा कर रहे हैं कि किस तरह से कर के मोर्चे पर और पारदर्शिता आएगी और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जो है लोग जिन्होंने काला धन कहीं ना कहीं छुपा के रखा है तो उन्हें अब कोई मौका नहीं है कि वो छूट पाएंगे। लेकिन इससे अगर ब्रॉडर पर्सपेक्टिव देखें, एक बड़ा परिप्रेक्ष्य देखें, तो क्या लगता है कि जो ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस की हम बात करते हैं, निवेश की हम बात करते हैं, क्या उसमें भी इसका एक अहम रोल है कहीं ना कहीं? क्योंकि जो भी बाहर से कंपनीज यहाँ पर आती हैं उनका हमेशा से एक ही सवाल और या कह सकते हैं कि जहन में एक डर था कि कर के मोर्चे पर पारदर्शिता नहीं। क्या लगता है कि इससे वहां पर भी थोड़ी हेल्प हो पाएगी?
देखिए, इसके दो पहलू हैं। एक पहलू मैं पॉजिटिव अगर देखता हूं तो वो ये है कि जब वो बाहर के लोग यहाँ निवेश करते हैं या वो जो ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर है जो वाइट में इकोनॉमी को चलाते हैं, उनको एक भारी कंपटीशन मिलता है उस सेक्टर से जो ब्लैक मनी में करता है। तो सरकार ने उसके ऊपर अटैक करके ये उनको कंपटीशन को, जो अनहेल्दी कंपटीशन है, जो टैक्स की चोरी की वजह से वो कम्पिटिटिव होते हैं, उसको एड्रेस करने की कोशिश की। और उसी में जीएसटी भी एक मुद्दा था जो सरकार ने चलाया है, तो उससे तो उनको वो एक बेनिफिट आने वाला है। सेकेंडली, सरकार ने उनको भी कहा है कि जो ब्लैक मनी कर रहे हैं तो मैंने डिमोनेटाइजेशन करके उस ब्लैक मनी को सक कर दिया है। तो ब्लैक मनी सक हो जाएगी तो इकोनॉमी के अंदर वो ब्लैक मनी नहीं होगी, तो उनको भी परफोर्स सरकार कह रही है कि आप इसको काले धन की इकोनॉमी को छोड़ के व्हाइट वाले सफेद धन में आ जाइए और उसको आ जाइए। तो सरकार की कोशिश दोनों तरीके से है। तो ये आपका जो क्वेश्चन था ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस की बात जब करते हैं, तो पहला जैसे मैंने कहा कि जब कंपटीशन अनहेल्दी खत्म हो जाएगा तो ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस बढ़ जाएगी, एक तो ये होगा। सेकेंडली, जो वो वर्ग है जो ब्लैक की इकोनॉमी करता है, उनकी ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस, उनको भी तकलीफ है जब वो काले धंधे की काम करते हैं। उनको भी मौका दे रही है कि आप इसको छोड़ के आ जाइए और आप इसमें नई स्कीम में आ जाइए, वो ज्यादा बेटर रहेगा।
Well, Mr. Jain, let us get some clarity onto these aspects now. One is the existing provision of penalty of 200% for misreporting any of the income under the section 278 has not been changed. So that 200% penalty is there. Apart from that, now this has gone to 60% plus 25% of tax plus 3%. So is it has to be clubbed now? The person who misreports, or I mean, who's basically is putting in some unexplained cash, so this whole provision has to be calculated and added so that he has to pay so much amount of extra penalty?
See, the question is when we need to make a distinction between tax and a penalty.
Yes.
Penalty is leviable when you default.
Absolutely.
And when you default means when you say something which is not correct. And this penalty is always leviable with reference to the return which you have filed. Say in the financial year 16-17 you earn an income of 10 lakh rupees. And you declare your income 8 lakh rupees, and assessing officer say no, it is 10 lakh rupees, then 2 lakh rupees is the under-reporting of income.
Yes.
And which is also a misreporting of income. So penalty of 200% is leviable in that cases.
Okay.
But if I have an income of 10 lakh rupees and declare 10 lakh rupees, then no penalty can be leviable because there is neither under-reporting nor the misreporting, and I can get away out of 30%. Now, what we have done is, now in this government has done is, that in order to address this issue that people may not deposit 10 lakh in the bank account and pay just 3 lakh rupees, and then there is neither misreporting, neither underreporting, government says that on such money the tax rate will be 60%. Okay. So there is a distinction between the tax rate, tax and the penalty. By and large, confusion is arising is that all people are thinking that government would have levied 30% tax and 200% penalty, so it would have come to 90%.
Yes.
That I believe that interpretation and the expectation is I believe is not a correct legal interpretation. You can visit with a 60% penalty when I do not pay 30% tax and do not include in the return. If having included it, I would have ended up with a 30%. The government have jacked up that rate from 30 to 77.25%, meaning thereby that 60% plus surcharge and plus education cess, so 70%. And on top of it, if you don't declare it, government will levy tax of 77.25% plus 10% penalty will also take. So it goes up to 85%. So it does not dilute any of the existing provision. If you still make a mistake, you don't include any income which you have earned and file the return and later on it get detected and included, then you can still be visited with 200% penalty. But so that provision remains untouched.
But then any sort of errors in declaring, like if not on the larger amounts and the minor amounts, and then we've suddenly realized, okay, this is an error and then I have to go back.
Then their income tax provision has enough scope for those honest default and honest mistake. and penalty for that case is, even if it gets, firstly the penalty is not leviable. In case you make inadvertent error, in case you do something which is not intentional and apparently looks to be, one can always make a mistake. You have an option to revise the return, you have an option to correct the paper, but your bona fide need to be tested and you need to prove it. Yes, it was a bona fide mistake. You write 2 plus 2 and by that you the total come to 3, then you can say always I declared 2, by mistake I have done 3, then no penalty is leviable. So honest taxpayer need not be afraid of the provision of tax income.
बट 10 को अगर 10 दिखाएंगे और हम बताएंगे कि हमने सिर्फ 5 है, तो वहाँ पर कहीं ना कहीं आप पर जुर्माने की पूरा कड़ा प्रावधान है सरकार की तरफ से, और सरकार की मंशा साफ है कि काले धन रखने वालों की धरपकड़ तेज करनी है और उन पर शिकंजा जो है वो अब इस बिल के बाद और कसना शुरू हो गया है। लेकिन फिलहाल वक्त छोटे से ब्रेक का है। ब्रेक के उस पार आकर जानेंगे कि बहुत सारे लोग हमसे ट्वीट और जीमेल के जरिए सवाल करना चाह रहे हैं। आप जुड़े रहिए इकोनॉमी टुडे के साथ।
Losing a lot on transaction fees? Become a member of the BSE and pay 99% less. BSE, experience the new.
Sensex is sensational. Is the darling of everyone. I am Vallabh Bansali. I've been associated with the BSE since 1981. Come, feel the financial pulse of the nation.
S&P BSE Sensex, India's index, the world tracks.
To benchmark against Sensex is to benchmark against 30 best Indian companies. I am Dinesh Thakkar. I am associated with BSE since 1987. Come, feel the financial pulse of the nation.
S&P BSE Sensex, India's index, the world tracks.
Mood of the nation is always in tandem with Sensex. I am Ketan Marwadi and have been associated with BSE since 1990. Come, feel the financial pulse of the nation.
S&P BSE Sensex, India's index, the world tracks.
Increase your playing field. Introducing S&P BSE 100, India's most broad-based derivatives traded index.
India's fastest currency derivatives exchange is here. BSE CDX, powered by Bolt Plus.
ब्रेक के बाद आप सभी का स्वागत है। तो आइए सवालों के सिलसिले को शुरू करते हैं और देखते हैं कि पहला सवाल किनका है और वो क्या सवाल पूछना चाहते हैं ट्विटर के जरिए।
And the question is by R.L. Singhatia. On self-declaration of black money, 25% will be retained in bank for a period. For that period, will the interest be given? I think that's the question, Mr. Brayjain.
I think the question which I'm getting is that you need to pay 50% of tax and 25% you need to retain as a deposit for 4 years, whether any interest is payable on that. The government has clearly said that no interest will be payable on that. And that's why we say the effective tax rate come to 60%, not 50%, because what you will get after 4 years is 25 rupees. So if I deposit 15 rupees today and I do not get interest, then I can make 25. So 10 rupees is a loss of interest which comes in 4 years. So effective rate will be 60%. You don't get any interest on that money. But on the balance 25%, you can withdraw, you can make a fixed deposit, whatever you want to do.
अगला मेल है सुमित मिश्रा का। जीमेल पर सवाल पूछ रहे हैं। आइए देखते हैं कि क्या सवाल है उनका। सुमित मिश्रा क्या पूछना चाहते हैं। As per 270A IT Act, 200% is fine, but as per new amendment, it becomes 50% and 25% cease for 4 years. Is it fair?
I think what I said earlier, that 270A penalty can be levied when you have done something wrong while filing the return. That means you declare income of rupees 10 lakh and actual income is 20 lakh, then penalty can be levied. But if the person declared 20 lakh in the return of income, then no 270 is leviable. But now new amendment says even if you do so, still you will have to pay 50% tax and 25% you need to deposit. So it is fair. It's not a concession. It is basically a hike in the tax rate. And what we are believing is 30 plus 200%, 90%. That can be levied only when you do not include the income. But once you include, you cannot levy 270A. So it should not be assumed that it is a 90% versus 50 plus 25% deposit. It is 30 versus 50% tax and 25% deposit.
Let's have a look at another question on Gmail by Purva Sharan. Let's have that question too. Purva Sharan is asking that is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana help to improve the agricultural technology? How the second phase of income declaration scheme improve the economy? As a taxation expert, what is your overall view on this?
See, the question is, what I'm getting is that the scheme is very clear when we say 30% tax, 10% penalty, and 33% surcharge for Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Kosh. So that 10% money which is getting it, 33% which is getting, is going to be used for agriculture also, because it is clearly stated it can be used for irrigation also, it can be used for toilet and other objective also. So when we talk about irrigation, so it includes agriculture, technology, which is the case here. And when you say, is it a second IDS, I will say no, it is not a second IDS in the manner. It's limited to only for the cash 500 and 1,000 rupees of demonetization. And government has tried to address this issue considering the fact that how the maneuvering which was going on for the last 15-20 days. And this is a statement made by the finance minister also when he referred to some petrol pump dealers, when he referred to some other activities which are being indulged into. Even the finance minister said in the parliament. So this is not that way. It is limited to only that aspect of 500 and 1,000 rupees. And I may also clarify, this does not give any exemption from Prevention of Corruption Act, Money Laundering Act, Black Money Act for foreign assets, etc. So there is no concession under any other provisions. You don't get any immunity. It is limited to the person who declared, and that too only the money cash which he has, he can go and declare. So this is not any amnesty or income disclosure scheme.
चलिए, तो ये IDS नहीं है, ये बहुत क्लैरिफाई कर दिया वेद जैन जी ने साफ तौर पर। और करप्शन, मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, जो तमाम तरह के एक्ट हैं वो भी लगाए जा सकते हैं यहाँ पर, सीधी साफ बात ये है। आइए देख लेते हैं कि अगला जीमेल किसका है। खेमू हिमाचली हैं, क्या सवाल पूछना चाहते हैं, आइए देख लेते हैं। Is there tax on agriculture related income? If yes, what is the limit?
See, the question is, on agriculture there is no tax, but agriculture related is a very wide subject, which is not, I think, the topic for today. If you have a food processing, then definitely it is not an agriculture income, but it may be agriculture related, but that will get taxed. So that's a wider question, but agriculture income is tax free. Agriculture related is a much wider terms, need to be examined on case to case basis.
Right. We have another question on Gmail. This is by Anubhav Jain. If I'm not wrong, let's have a look at that question by Anubhav Jain, what he has to ask. How does amendment prevent generation of black money? Will the people be under scanner in future, or they are relieved?
Very interesting question, because the question is whether how does this help in generation of black money. The issue is that some steps have to be taken. One step is not sufficient to address all the problems of a developing nation like India. This is one of the steps where the Prime Minister has made an attack on the black money which is being stored or kept in the form of a cash currency of 500,000 rupees. As regard the issue, yes, it will help it, because it is signal to those people, look, the government is very serious about the black money, please do not do it, and that, they say, I believe it is a strong message, and should be people should be afraid of it. And when the money gets out of the system, obviously more money cannot be generated.
Right. Mr. Jain, if you can give some clarity on this penalty for search and seizure. Now that has been from 10 and 20%, it has gone to 30% as well.
See, that's also another area which has been addressed, because one of the issue was that in case there is a search carried out on anybody, on a person, then tax rate applicable on the money, bullion, jewelry which is found normally during the course of the search is 30%. And in case such person makes a declaration during the search, explain the source from where this money has been earned, substantiate the manner,
and it is legitimate,
then penalty is 10%.
Okay.
So, and then there was another clause where penalty was 20% in case you include that income in the return of income, and then 30%. Now, considering that overall change which have been made for an income which you are not able to explain, because the issue which this bill is trying to address is the income which you have earned from the legitimate means which you are able to explain, income which you have may include in the tax return, but which you may not have been able to substantiate the source. So, taking into consideration that amendment in the provision of penalty 271AA we will call it, there the provision has been made that the penalty in such cases will be 30 plus 30%. So even if you make a declaration at the time of a search, explain the source, as against 10% existing penalty, it will be 30% penalty. But if you don't do so, then penalty will be 60%. So there are, in such two cases now, if you get caught of a black money, then and you declare and accept it, then 60%. But if you don't accept it, and you include in the later on the assessing of assess, then 90%. So it takes the, I think, the very high bar. So out of 100 rupees, 90 rupees goes. And when I include this surcharge or education cess, etc., it may go beyond the 99% also.
वे जी अगर जो लोग ब्लैक मनी होल्डर्स हैं और वो जाकर अपना पैसा जो है वो इस कानून के तहत जमा करवाते हैं, तो क्या लगता है क्या उनसे जो इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट है वो इस आय का स्रोत पूछेगा? क्या सोर्स ऑफ इनकम पूछी जाएगी? क्योंकि लगातार कई बार ऐसी खबरें भी सामने आ रही थी कि उनसे सोर्स ऑफ इनकम नहीं पूछा जाएगा।
हाँ, देखिए इसमें ये जो स्कीम आई है प्रधानमंत्री की गरीब कल्याण कोष में, जिसमें 50% टैक्स और 25% का आपका डिपॉजिट है, उसमें उन्होंने क्लैरिफाई किया है हम आपसे सोर्स नहीं पूछेंगे। तो यही उसकी एक कंसेशन है, क्योंकि 500 और 1000 रुपए अगर देखिए उसमें एक आपको समझना पड़ेगा, अगर वो व्यक्ति अपना सोर्स बताने में कामयाब हो सकता है तो फिर तो उस पर 30% टैक्स लगना चाहिए। अगर किसी के पास कोई इनकम आई है, वो काला धन नहीं है ना, सोर्स बता रहा है वो अपना, तो वो तो फिर वो 30% काला धन नहीं है, वो सोर्स बता रहा है कि मेरा क्या सोर्स है। अगर वो सोर्स करंट ईयर की इनकम का है तो लेजिटिमेटली वो अपने सोर्स बताए, 30% टैक्स दे, तो उसके लिए तो कोई जुर्माना होना नहीं चाहिए। लेकिन अगर वो सोर्स नहीं बता रहा तो फिर ये काला धन है। ये भी शक है कि इस साल का है या पिछले साल का है, तो ये भी एक डाउट है। लेकिन कोई व्यक्ति आज की डेट में ये कहता है कि मैंने इनकम किया, सोर्स बताता हूं, लेकिन वो पिछले साल का है, तो फिर उसको पेनल्टी देनी पड़ेगी कि आपने पिछले साल में क्यों नहीं दिखाया। ब्याज भी देना पड़ सकता है, इंटरेस्ट भी देना पड़ सकता है। तो वो इसके अंदर छूट दी गई है कि आप 500 1000 रुपए के नोट बैंक में जमा कराते हैं तो आपको 50% टैक्स और 25% 4 साल के लिए जमा कराना पड़ेगा।
Mr. Vajan, finally, final comments in brief. We are running out of time. We have a few seconds left. These measures to curb the black money menace. We have this demonetization of high-valued currency notes. Now these amendments to the income tax department. How are you looking at the future?
See, it's a continuous fight against black money, corruption, counterfeit currency, terrorist funding, etc. I believe when this government has come into power in 2014, in the last 2.5 years, it has taken number of steps. It set up SIT. It came with the Black Money Act. It came with the IDS where 45% tax was taken. Or it came now with this demonetization. And then they have amended this income tax provision also. It's a continuous fight. I am of the view, India is a very vast country, 125 crore people. It's a vast geographically spread over area. And for a developing nation, these are the issues which need to be tackled with. We are growing at a very fast pace, 7.3 the GDP, which has come in the last quarter also, second quarter of this financial year, 16-17. So this is a continuous process.
True.
And as we grow more and more, our economy grows more and more, our people become more educated, more literate, more digitized, and looks to more using the plastic money and do e-wallet, etc. I believe all these issues will get over a period diluted and India become more and more matured economy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vajan, for coming to our studio and giving your analysis and actually clearing many doubts on these tax amendments, which in fact the bill which was passed in Lok Sabha as well. Thank you very much for coming to studio. So, well, before we wind up, let's have a look at the markets. BSE Sensex still continuing that momentum, just up by 30 points, around 26,682, and NSE Nifty is also showing some flat trends, trading around 8,226, up by just 2 points. And that's all in this show, Business Morning. Stay tuned to updates from DD News. Thanks for watching.
Namaskar.